Alright, so I've done about 3 takes of this video now. This is my third take, actually. Third take. And my microphone is having trouble picking up my sound, so I'm going to try to do it close up. And I have a script with me, and we're going to get right into this. It's matters of life and death, specifically on the issue of suicide. And if this video turns out to have poor quality, I'm sorry, but I've done this twice now, and this video both times comes out to 12 minutes. So I basically talked 24, almost 30 minutes consecutively, and it's getting kind of tiring. So I'm going to do this last take, and if the microphone doesn't match up, I apologize, but I'm not doing this again. Um, and I said I'd get it out today so at some point. So I'm already kind of late with that, so why don't we get started? On matters of life and death, specifically on the issue of suicide. I'll try not to read the script as much as I can, but no promises. Introduction. When we discuss something such as life and death, that is the existence of something and the stopping existence and the stopping of such existence, many subjects can arise, many important subjects. One important subject that may arise is where we go when we die. Will we go to heaven or hell? Is there any such thing? Will we rot in the ground? And one important relevant topic to that is the issue of suicide. And of course, it's relevant because the Christian idea of suicide means that you're probably going to hell because it's a transgression. Well, it conflicts with God's will or God's law. Specifically, I'd like to talk about an argument against such a notion, which comes from a Christian who was a Scottish philosopher. His name was David Hume, and I'd like to furthermore discuss his arguments against it and whether they hold water, and my own viewpoint on suicide. So I talk of suicide and specifically Hume's problems with the Christian idea of suicide entails because I recently just started trying to finish up dialogues concerning natural religion. I hadn't finished it. I had done the majority of it, but I hadn't done of suicide or on miracles. Miracles I still haven't finished, but I'll probably finish tonight or tomorrow. But that's not important to the video. I just felt like it was worth mentioning. In any event, Dialogues Concerning Natural Religion, which was written by Hume, was written in 1894, and the book contains a short section of suicide, which was also written by Hume, and the miracles was too, but both went unpublished originally, because back in 1894, if you criticized the religion, it was still pretty dangerous to do something like that. Um, the church still acted pretty brutally towards people who would do that, and a lot of people were still very religious. So it wasn't very safe. But I covered his argument because I feel like his arguments are not only interesting, but his arguments are well worth adapting in certain contexts. Not universally, but within certain contexts. And I think that context of where to adopt it will become obvious as we go along. Now, the purpose of this video, which I've already sort of said, but I'll go over again, will be to analyze Hume's claims and his objections to the Christian claim that taking your own life is suicide or is sinful, whatever, as well as why Christians think this and my own view on suicide. Suicide discussed within a religious context. Hume offers an antidote to any sort of superstition that sorry, I've lost my place. Any sort of superstition or unnatural religion, which for him is philosophy. Suicide is a matter that specifically has to do with bad or unnatural religion, because as Hume says about the subject of death, quote, when the menaces of superstition are joined to this natural timidity, no wonder it deprives men of all power over their lives, since even many pleasures and enjoyments to which we are carried by a strong propensity are torn from us by this inhuman tyrant. Page 98. The idea of any unnatural religion that comes into men's mind and makes them think that death is more than it is, naturally speaking, is such an inhuman tyrant that Hume is talking about. Hume thinks that this is the case for the Christian notion of the immorality, not immortality, of the notion of suicide, which results in, for the Christian, God's condemnation and subsequently a one-way ticket to hell. Yay! Who's going to hell? Their case against suicide is succinctly put by Hume, and it is that it's a quote transgression of our duty, either to God, our neighbor, or ourselves. Page 98. Now, although I'm an atheist, as far as the concept of God we're talking about, and agnostic otherwise, meaning I find any other concept of God besides the Judeo-Muslim Christian conception of it meaningless. I'm an atheist as far as the Judeo-Muslim Christian, but otherwise I'm agnostic. That's with an I, not an A. I shall assume for the sake of Hume's argument that God exists, because it doesn't work if I don't. Hume although he's a skeptic, Hume is a skeptic, but although he's a skeptic about Christianity, he's still a Christian himself. God in this case is, like I said, the Judeo-Muslim-Christian conception of it, an omnipresent, all-knowing, all-powerful God. If I got that definition wrong, please let me know. I am no expert on religion, but I thought that was fairly easy to do, and I'm pretty sure that that matches up with what they believe. But if I'm wrong, let me know. Hume's argument. God has, for the sake of the argument Hume makes here, created all of the laws, including the natural laws such as gravity and so forth. And so we can easily tell right off the bat that humans are naturally in conflict with God's law all the time. And thus, being in conflict with these general principles, they must defy the common laws that God has ordained to be necessary for the universe from time to time, even when not taking their lives. Hume has offered some examples of this, or an example of this. It would be no crime in me to divide the Nile Danube from its course were able to effect such purposes. Where then is the crime of taking a few ounces of blood from their natural channel? Page 101. Humans can quite easily subvert the natural laws that affect them. For example, the astronaut in space subverts the common law of gravity that inhibits the Earth and becomes weightless in space. Yet the astronaut is no criminal, is he? Is the farmer a criminal because he alters the natural state of the ground to make some food to feed himself and his family? I think the viewer and I can come to the conclusion that Hume comes to, that although perhaps these things may be criminal, that all acts that subvert the natural principles that God has ordained are either equally criminal or equally innocent. Page 102 is where he talks about that concept. Man has the full authority over his own body, at least I believe so, as evident through nature, at least physiologically speaking, man has the full authority over his own body, as evident through nature, and thus he should have control over his own body, and this includes taking his life. And all of Hume's points thus far are self-evident, I believe, through plain old reasoning and empiricism. I mean, obviously, you can divide, if you were to be able to divide the Nile, it would be no crime. I fail to see how God would be offended by this, so I also fail to see how defying any natural principles that God may have ordained um, about life would hold different weight. Now, with the breach of God, I think fairly or thoroughly dismissed, what are the disturbances it may cause to society or to other people? Putting suicide suicide within a social context. People's worth and their life as a whole is something that must be first discussed. Is a man important simply because he thinks so, because other people think so, because society thinks so? Does it matter on the number? Does it matter on the size? Or if a society as a whole thinks his life is important, yeah, etc. It should not be disputed, however, that the central power of any organization is an integral part of that organization. It would surely cause the organization a major form of disruption if the person decides to suddenly kill himself. Um, where I'm using an example here that let's say that the person in question who wants to kill himself is part of a major organization, and he's a central part of it. But on the other hand, what if the man in question does not think he's important as everyone else does? Should he live his life simply because other people value him more than he does? But this is absurd. Living your life for other people does not seem to me to lead to a happy life, and it seems to be more of a burden on you and and other people in the long run than living for other people, than just killing yourself. A man who lives his life for other people uh, will find no solace in his actions, no consequences in his life, and no responsibilities to his duties he should attend to, and then some. And such a life seems miserable to anyone, and surely to me, and should surely, if unable to be improved, should be allowed to be ended. Is this not a reasonable request? After all, the individual has full authority over their body, physiologically speaking, as we have discussed, as evident through nature, and it seems out of place to suddenly claim ownership over another person when they think that they have put no value towards other people. I think Hume puts this point excellently by saying that, suppose that it is no longer my power to promote the interests of the public. Suppose that I'm a burden to it. Suppose that my life hinders some person from being much more useful to the public. In such cases, my resignation of life must not only be innocent, but laudable. Page 103 to 104. Therefore, not only must suicide not be immoral in circumstances such as those, but it does not and could not violate God's law, or else we are all in violation of God's law, and thus criminals from the start of our lives and throughout our lives. For we all subvert nature and the common law that God has ordained according to Hume. Just through our interactions with the world around us, we alter the world around us in such a way that must eventually come in contradiction with God's law. And if it was a sin to do so, it'd make us a criminal. But as Hume reasons out, it is apparent that this could not possibly be true. Furthermore, if we feel we cannot impel any more value on others, on ourselves, or for life, and we can do no more good and reciprocate the relationships we get, then why should we not kill ourselves? For example, if me and a friend voluntarily come together and say, I will give him 5 apples every day, just an example. Just an example. And I eventually can only give him 4 apples. Now, would it be a waste to end this relationship, or would it be a waste to continue such a relationship in which I cannot perform the dynamic that we both agreed to, or the relationship that we both agreed to, the duties, etc.? No, I think it would be a lot more beneficial and a lot less wasteful to end the relationship. Now, in the same way with life, I think if we cannot match ourselves up with life, we cannot live a virtuous, good life, then I think that there's no point, especially if we can't improve on it, to continue living life. Conclusion. Now, I understand I may come off as a condoner of suicide in this video, but I do not condone suicide specifically, at least largely. I would not. I think we are the makers of our own life, and we can improve our lives, even if we're very down or we're having a lot of issues. I think we can get through it. I think Nietzsche's generalization that whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger, since it's a generalization, it generally holds true. Not all the time, of course. I think there's some specific cases where it might just destroy a person psychologically. Um, so in that case, obviously, it would make them stronger. But I think in most cases, Nietzsche's quote here holds true. And I think that suicide um, is something that can be gotten through, or the tendency to feel like you should kill yourself is something that can get through. And I think even if you can't and you feel like you have to, it's moral and even understandable in some cases. And I think this holds true whether you believe in God or not. And I'd actually like to make an interesting point in accordance with Hume's points. Hume's argument is that you can take your life, and that um, and that you can take your own life, and that opens up an interesting libertarian perspective, or perhaps an opinion that can go along with it, and that is, libertarian meaning, within this context, favoring the individual over an illegitimate collective, or such as society or government. Society in some cases, government in most cases. Um, the fact is that if killing yourself could be in accordance with God's law, how could doing drugs, even if illegal, be against God's will? What about drinking and any other personal vice? Personal vices do not affect others on their own. That's why they're called personal vices, and only become crimes when they do so in an involuntary manner, to the other people around you. And I think all personal vices can be allowed under Hume's argument. But of course, I don't know whether Hume would have extended this to that position, because I haven't read any of Hume besides to dialogues concerning natural religion. But I think I can say with reasonable assurance either way that the viewer and I can come to such a conclusion, even if Hume didn't. After all, if it's all right to kill yourself and you are the full authority over your life, what are the implications for external authority like government, who tries to regulate your vices, specifically personal ones, and your life in general? Perhaps that will be a topic to explore some other time. All right, that's it for now. And I apologize if my mic still wasn't picking up sound, but I'm not doing this again. All right, so I hope this came in all right.